Hello, everyone. Welcome to WP Roundtable. My name is Jason Crawford, and sorry we're late, but we got a really cool guest on today, so let's get right down to it. Kyle, want to go?
Hey, everybody. I'm Kyle. I'm from Jackson, Michigan, USA, and I'm lead dev and co-founder of Relay Marketing. Great agency here in this town. We do WordPress stuff. We make sites. We make plugins. We make great big fun. And let's pass it to Kellen.
Alrighty, good evening. My name is Kellen Mace, freelance web dev, not too far from Kyle, from Rochester Hills area on the east side of Michigan. Happy to be on tonight with LearnDash Pro creator, Justin Ferriman.
That's right, we've got Justin on today. Justin Ferriman is somebody I've wanted to get on the show for a long time. He's super awesome. I met him in Ann Arbor earlier this summer. I love what he's created. We got to hang out at a couple WordCamps, and it's really our pleasure to have him on today because we're going to learn a whole lot about e-learning, about premium WordPress products, about this awesome thing called LearnDash that I keep hearing buzz all about across the WordPress community. And to talk to another Michigan developer and represent the awesome WP community that is here in the Mid-State. All right, so Justin, you want to introduce yourself, and we'll get right to the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Name's Justin Ferriman. I was born and raised in Michigan. Currently reside in Ann Arbor. And let's see, in my spare time, I like to play chess. There's an interesting fun fact before we get into all the details.
All right, that's a pretty big jump ahead. I was going to ask you about your spare time later, but yeah, we can rearrange. That's okay. That's okay.
We can check that off.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to start at the beginning, like we always do. We're going to go way, way back. You know, so when you were a young Justin Ferriman child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a soccer player. Played soccer my whole life through college, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. Like any young kid that's in sports, they think they can be a pro. At the time, there was no pro league, so obviously that wasn't going to happen, at least in the States. But once I came to terms with that, I really didn't know for a long time, and I was okay with that. And then just went to college and did my studies and just kind of fell into eventually training and development, e-learning. And that's where I am today, and I love it.
So are you telling me there's actually a pro league of soccer in the U.S. now?
You might have heard of it. I think some guy named David Beckham playing. I don't know.
No, I haven't heard of it. I always took pride in the fact that I knew that we didn't have one, and now I'm stuck dealing with that knowledge. That can't be taken away. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. You're not alone in that sense.
Well, I get to deal with all these soccer fans in Columbia day in and day out, and we watch soccer 24 hours a day. So.
Yeah. The World Cup certainly helps.
Oh, that was a massive week.
So continuing on that kind of line of questioning, Justin, we were wondering, you said for a while there you didn't quite know what you were doing and fell into or got into the e-learning stuff. So what led you in that direction, and why WordPress as a platform? Why would you choose that?
Wow. Well, I've always had interaction with WordPress. So I guess maybe it's easier to back up and just say that as I was going through my studies and going through school, I started a WordPress just blog back in undergrad. Back when it was new, I didn't know what it was. It was just a WordPress.com site. So I was checking it out, started a blog, and that's how I was first introduced to the software. And going through undergrad and grad school, and then even when I was doing my full-time consulting career, which we can talk about in a bit, but even when I was doing that, I was still working with WordPress. Family members found out that I knew how to make websites, so of course I would help them out and set it up, and just real basic stuff. But that's kind of how I got the first introduction to WordPress and came to know it, and built up my skill set in this area.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good start and kind of interesting. So did you like experiment with other platforms, and we have like a lot of exposure kind of in a broader sense of the web platforms that could be used? Was there a winding path that brought you to WordPress? And what was your first impression of it? Did you like it from the start, or did it grow on you?
I think I've always liked it from the start because it allows for I like to just kind of create things, right? And back even before getting into college and all that, I was taking computer classes, HTML classes in high school when it was kind of the new thing, being part of the website design of our high school, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed creating websites. I thought it was so cool. You could just kind of type some stuff out, and all of a sudden it appears on screen, and everybody can interact with it. So the site wasn't pretty, a lot of tables, but that was the nature of HTML back then. So, and then when I got into WordPress, I was doing some more, in some of the groups that I was involved with in college. I would always take on the website, so I would manage the website that we were using and add the updates, and it was all very clunky. And I think I was using front page, Microsoft front page to manage everything and upload it to the server. It's just kind of a pain. So when WordPress.com, when that came across my plate and I was experimenting with it, I thought it was really cool, and just all the flexibility it allowed for. And that's kind of what got me hooked. And then, of course, as I got more into the world of WordPress, I understood that the more flexibility you had with a self-hosted solution, and kind of just self-taught my way through that whole process.
Was there like a particular moment for you, Justin, when you said, this WordPress, this is it, this is where my career is going to go, or like a turning point? I know there were points like that for me where I was like, oh, I really think I've got a future here. I really think that of all the options I could take, this is the one. And you've obviously, which we'll get to later, built a whole business around a WordPress product. What were those moments for you, or were there? Was it very gradual?
It was, Kyle, for me, a lot more gradual. For lack of a better word, played things a lot by the book. Went to undergrad and then went to grad school and fell into my career in consulting. But at the same time, in my off hours, I would always tinker and play with WordPress and the sites. So I knew that I wanted to do something. One thing I always knew is I wanted to do something on my own, and I didn't know what that was going to be. I think I started some businesses, and they were you learn from your mistakes, I think. So I think one was nice. I got to sell it on like a website sales marketplace, but I always knew I always had this longing to do something maybe on the web. I didn't know what. I didn't even know WordPress. I just knew that in some capacity it was something I wanted to do. Ultimately, the career that I had chosen was the avenue, and then eventually taking what I was doing on a day-to-day and coupling that with a software that I loved, ended up in LearnDash and kind of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis now.
So, tell us a little bit about this Learn plugin, LearnDash.
Yeah, sure. What would you like to know? I think from a basic standpoint, if you were to ask me, well, what is LearnDash? It's a way to easily create courses using a WordPress site, deliver and track user activity, and offer quizzes, award certificates. Now that can be off a broad range of industries that you can probably imagine, anything from classrooms to people offering compliance training, a more traditional corporate setting, internal employee training. All those areas that kind of can span across. So that's where it's exciting, but also challenging because there's different demands across every market. I think one question that I often get is, well, what made you think you want to create a learning management system for WordPress. And it was funny, I was actually doing another project. My wife, who's a co-founder of LearnDash with me, we were working on another project more related to what she was doing in day-to-day and what she went to grad school for. And I had made a comment, a learning management system would be great. I just naturally went to the plugin repository and there was nothing. So at that point, I decided, maybe there's an interest here, and created a blog, at the time, wplms.org, and started blogging about the possibility of WordPress as a LMS platform, but not only that, also about industry topics and e-learning, what was going on with the latest technologies, not necessarily related to WordPress, but a whole world that I've been involved with for quite some time, just stuff that interests me. And it turned out there was an interest there. I had a simple sign up for people that would be interested in hearing more about the WordPress LMS, and I was surprised at the reaction just from blogging, and that kind of sparked it. And then from there is where I really started to genuinely pursue making it a reality.
Cool. Well, and before you were able to make that a reality, it looks like just from our notes that you worked for Accenture, formerly Accent on the Future. When that was kind of your day job, when you before you jumped ship, what did you do with them? Was it like related to tech consulting, stuff? What exactly was it?
Yeah, Kellen, that's right. It was, what I did is would go to, a lot of traveling, first of all, a lot of flying, but would go to these companies that were implementing a new software in their organization, and I was always part of the training and development team. And we would create e-learning and software walkthroughs, and then deliver the content either virtually or sometimes in-person training, so doing either seminars or a combination of both. Usually a blended learning approach is what we would do, but everything from the planning of the implementation to the build, the design, development, deploy. This was, that whole life cycle I would be part of. So I'd be part of these projects for anywhere from 10 months to 16 months or something like that, depending on how big the project was. So that was what I was doing on day-to-day. So I was very much involved with the technologies of e-learning, the methodology, instructional design. That was my world, and something I learned I fell in love with as I was doing it. I really enjoyed that part of my job.
Very cool. Yeah, that probably gave you a good sense, just as you said, for what a lot of clients would need out of a product like that, right?
Mm.
So you guys want to go ahead with a few questions on LearnDash next year?
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, Justin, and you said you always wanted to kind of do something on your own. And I was going to ask what made you, pushed you to make that transition to go out and do something on your own after you left Accenture. So maybe you could touch on that a little bit, and also kind of at the same time, I'd be interested as a follow-up to that for you to contrast the e-learning landscape before you built LearnDash, which was a few years ago, I think, and how it looks today. How has the e-learning space evolved as you've been involved with it?
Absolutely. Two good questions, and if I forget the second one, please remind me, because I want to talk about that as well. But the first part about, if I can, I just want to make sure I remember properly, is at what point did I decide I wanted to go out on my own? And I think I always knew I wanted to go out on my own, but the one piece of advice I give anybody that has that kind of entrepreneurial spirit is don't quit your day job. I mean, do it as long as you can, both of them, or work on one to fund the other until it makes sense to make the switch. I mean, that was something I did, and I really believe in that. At the same time, I was gaining new skills and knowledge from my job. I was also, obviously building out LearnDash and doing my market research. A lot of people will just jump right into an idea without doing research, and I spent a couple months just profiling prospective customers and client bases, and also what else happened to be out there and in what form. So, it wasn't like I just made the decision and jumped ship. I've always knew I wanted to do it, and when the time was right, I did make that switch. So there was a time where I was working really, really long hours because consulting, as you probably know, it could go from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then I'd come back and I'd have to do some LearnDash stuff. So it was that was a trying time, especially because I was getting married and on my honeymoon when I was working. But it was worth it in the end, I think.
So maybe you could speak a little bit then to the transition, to the evolution of the e-learning industry as we've been involved with it, especially like before you started. How did it look? You started to think, maybe there's a space for me. Is it different now? How has it evolved?
Yeah, well, like a lot of industries, I think, and you guys can probably relate to this to some degree. The technology sometimes in more formal settings doesn't really catch up with the trends, the latest apps, the entertainment piece. And e-learning has always existed in corporate America. What we see now, though, is you're seeing commercials for people that are selling courses. Think about was it Treehouse? There's commercials for Treehouse about learning web design and development, which is great. Lynda.com is another example. You see commercials and a lot of advertisements for that. I think the general acceptance of e-learning is a viable way to learn new skills, to get certificates for a profession. Even continuing education units. These realms are now more acceptable and not seen as so much as a lesser way of being educated. So even in the past 2-3 years, we've seen a massive growth in the industry. If you look at another example being Coursera, which is a Stanford service product. It's the massive online open courses. That has taken off. They keep getting funding and funding and funding because it's a way now for people are recognizing that's the way of the future of making education affordable and accessible to everybody. So I think as the technology's evolved around e-learning, it's opened up some doors with how the content's delivered. And then at the same time, the social aspect, it's viewed as more acceptable. I like to relate it to online dating, right? And there was one time where nobody would admit that they were on an online dating site, but now it's pretty common. I think e-learning is kind of taking that same trajectory, at least in the public eye.
Yeah, I was really excited about this one today because I've actually gone through 4 different colleges online. And, well, I'm in my 4th college online now, and 2 of them were just absolutely horrible, and 2 of them aren't great. But I've also used, like, lynda.com, and I took a photography course through Matador U, and I've taken several courses, just private courses, and it's always been such a better experience than the actual college that I'm attending or something like that. So this is really exciting to me because I've seen how much how much better the experience can be in the online world than what it has been in my experience, like I said, the 4 different colleges.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really interested to see where this goes from here on out, in the future, and what your take on that might be. Where do you see this heading off in the future?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it in a lot of different ways. Mobile learning is huge, and we could have a whole show on that. But the lines are kind of blurry between what is e-learning and what is mobile learning, but I like to say mobile learning is anything that someone's doing from a phone or a tablet. Just by that's an easy way to think about it, not at a laptop maybe, even though I guess in essence it's kind of mobile learning. But mobile learning is taking off. People are attached to their phones. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense for companies to offer learning in a convenient fashion from phones that they can track to make sure their employees are staying up with compliance or even bolstering their skill set. And then sometimes they have reward programs based on that. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that in both corporate and then maybe even the K-12 arena too, which e-learning and blended learning approaches in the classroom are becoming commonplace.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's really taken off. So I guess probably for the benefit of everybody, it'd be good to talk a little bit about the real where LearnDash is really applicable, where you shine, who's your most common market. I know I've had some experiences with LMS projects in the past a little bit, especially like at my last employer. One of my projects was to build kind of like this training program. There was a certification program for customers, and before it had been on paper, and I took it online, and then I had to make, just before I even knew WordPress, I had to make kind of like this custom forms that submitted the choices and automatically returned a score, and it was just elaborate and a lot of work and absolutely terrible. And eventually used something like Moodle to make a training program that was super complex, but it was a business, not an educational institution. So are you serving like schools or educational organizations or businesses with training programs, internal or external, or companies profiting from online training programs or courses? There's a lot of education out there that could be applicable. So what's your focus?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I mean, it's, at the risk of sounding like that's a cop-out answer, there's really a broad audience for at least in the LearnDash perspective. So we have been used, and we are used in university settings, be it a professor with their classroom or a department. We have a couple K through 12, at least last I checked, a couple K through 12 districts that are using it, and I suspect their teachers are using it in their classrooms. Outside the educational arena, we have just a blogger. Bloggers that they have content they want to sell, and they want to offer a structured course experience. And so that's obviously another piece of the puzzle. Now, where we kind of straddle some multiple industries here, there's obviously the WordPress piece, which is great, and we love the WordPress piece. But from my background in e-learning, also we're getting a lot of traditional companies and people that are looking for Tin Can API, which is just a specification in e-learning space. And between these two, we're kind of serving both. So if somebody wants to call me up and talk to me about Tin Can API, I'll talk to them, no problem, and about their specifications for the project, what they need, how to run Tin Can API off of WordPress, where they can get a learning record store, and all this other technical jargon. But that's another piece of the puzzle too. So we have anywhere from bloggers to businesses looking at traditional e-learning using programs like Adobe Captivate and Articulate Storyline, and then you have universities and professors, as well as continuing education programs. So at first, when I got into this, I didn't know it was going to stretch across that many different areas, but I think what they all have in common is they could choose any solution, right? We know WordPress, we know all the options out there, great options, free and paid. And I think the benefit of coming with LearnDash is that we're offering an industry perspective. That's the value they're getting. If they have a support question, they want to bounce an idea even off of us. I've been there before, so a lot of these requests are coming in. I'm talking to these people directly about how they can use LearnDash, or how they can better set up their e-learning program for success. So what all these people have in common is they value that. And they value that industry expertise in these areas, because these programs, any e-learning program or learning management system, as you know, Kyle, from your experience, it's kind of a bear. It's tough to set up. If you think you're going to come in and just set it up, and I'm going to put some words on a page and sell it, it's a little bit more than that. And sometimes it's a rude awakening, and having somebody there that's been there before in the space that knows what you're talking about is, I think, very valuable.
Great, thanks, Justin. For the next question here, somewhat related to what you were talking about, we've seen some really rave reviews from highly respected members of the WordPress community on WordDash, and we're just going to ask you, why do you think that is? If you could toot your own horn a little bit. What sets LearnDash apart, from a lot of other plugins out there? Why is it so popular and doing well?
It's probably not so much that what sets us apart, but what we bring is kind of what I was touching on before. There's a personal touch to our support. It's not technical support; it's business support. It is technical support in many many cases, but it goes beyond that. So I think that's one piece of why people leave or come to LearnDash and have a positive opinion of their experience. There's one thing that we all know is that, and this is any business, I think, the way that we perceive a service or a product is almost unanimously 100% related to the support and our experience and our interactions with it. So, even when I was doing the blogging, before I had a product and people were reaching out to me on LinkedIn or they were reaching out to me from the blog, I was responsive and I was informative, and I addressed their questions, in a fashion that didn't just make it seem like it was a canned response. So I think that that's one piece. Now, support aside, I think another reason that it's been well received is because we very much have our ear to the ground in the industry. When we're adding gamification elements, which we were first to do, amongst the WordPress LMS industry, then that's because I've had experience there. I know it works. I know that it's part of major learning programs, and there wasn't anything out there that was there wasn't anything currently out there in WordPress in a unified fashion. So when they had this badging and gaming element and the whole open badges initiative that's going on, we immediately knew we wanted to tie LearnDash to that. So I think that's another reason that people are pleased with what we're doing with LearnDash, is because we're putting in relevant features that they can use should they choose to, and integrating with other popular platforms, and doing so in a way that makes sense and doesn't blow the software. So I think that may answer your question, but let me know.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You definitely have like a ton of expertise in this industry, and so you would traditionally be somebody that I would see as coming in and just playing that consultant role, and having that be your business model. And that very well could be your business model to go around and just help all of these organizations set up their e-learning properly, and I imagine that is a part of your business. But you did get into like this product space where you were going to develop software, technical, like new solution, and start with the WordPress platform and distribute it this way. So maybe you could talk about like some of the decisions you made and like why you decided to go this route. Why you're going to develop new software? Why are you going to start with WordPress? Why are you going to price it this way? Why are you going to just these basic business choices that you made?
Yeah, it was, I think it was more of a snowball effect. Like I mentioned previously, I saw that there was nothing really out there, at least to WordPress LMSs. I have dealt with LMSs, and by the way, Kyle, I feel bad for you with dealing with Moodle. That is a terrible platform. And also, for those that may watch this and don't know what Moodle is, it's an open source software for an LMS, and it's terrible. But they're making progress. So. I think it was a snowball, like I said, a snowball effect. There was an opportunity. Obviously, there was a gap in the market that I felt there was a gap, and the more I explored it, the more I realized that other people were kind of looking for this too. And maybe this isn't in regards to my background as an e-learning consultant, but just as an entrepreneur. You see something, you see a market, and you want to figure out how to serve that market. So from the product space, that's kind of where, where we decided we wanted to bring a product to, or fill that, fill that spot in the market, or at least be one of the providers or elite providers for that. I never thought that I'd be creating software, so that's been a journey and a learning experience too. But it's been a great one. So I think that coupled with, I consider myself an advanced WordPress user for sure. And then my industry experience, and then my wife, who's very much involved in the day-to-day as well. Together we're bringing a unique and perspective and unique offering. It's not just the software; it's the team behind it. Now, some decisions are good, some decisions are bad, but that's with any business. I think one thing that you guys have probably noticed, and we have too, is that the pricing model for WordPress plugins and premium themes, etc. It's evolving, and we're probably a little bit behind on that evolution, and we're currently working on how we're going to change that. So we don't have any specifics yet, but we've been doing a little bit of research and kind of weighing a cost-benefit analysis on different things. But we're learning too. We don't have all the answers, so it's been fun. And the great thing about WordPress is we have these meetups and these WordCamps, Kyle, that we go to, and we get to learn how other people are doing it. So you never get a sense that you're alone, so that's cool.
You mentioned that your pricing model is something you're looking at.
Yeah.
Kyle and I were talking earlier when we were discussing, making notes and everything, and the first thing I could say was, man, that is cheap.
Yeah, isn't that the story of all WordPress? Yeah, that's the. What's funny though, and I think at least what I've seen is, so our with a discount, it's $99 for kind of our top package, which at the same time, at least historically, at the time, especially when we were launching, and that wasn't the price point we were at when we launched, but that was the price of a very premium plugin. They weren't much higher than that, at least not many. So I think the WordPress, as we all know, is kind of undervalued, but that is changing, which is good. The biggest thing I think is the industry shift away from the one-time payment. It's just not sustainable. We know that, and we're going to be making necessary changes for that. But yeah, pricing is tough. I'm by no means a pricing expert. And keep in mind, when we were launching this initially, I had a full-time job, nice, comfy, benefits package and all that stuff. I didn't have to worry about anything. So, pricing, I wanted, it wasn't so much like, okay, this is tied to, I need to make a living off this. So, that was probably something in hindsight that I probably should approach it a little bit differently. But it's never too late to change things. And right now, we're kind of comfortable with where we're at, and we'll evolve with the industry, I think, is the important thing.
Well, I was ready to just buy it so that I'd have it grandfathered in on that package because it was.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you want lifetime support and updates, right?
Even though I don't have anything to teach anybody.
Oh, that's funny.
It sounds like, yeah, and we definitely talked about that, and it's such a cool product. But I think it's a good point to go over maybe some lessons learned and segue into that a little bit. I'd be interested to hear about it, all the other people in the WordPress space, developers, agencies like us. We talked about getting into the product space, diversifying our business, and experimenting with other things. And all the people watching and maybe starting a business or thinking about starting something in the WordPress space, lessons learned from Justin Ferriman, founder of this awesome LearnDash plugin and this business. He's the e-learning guy. What did you learn about pricing? What did you learn about how to get a business started, and when's the best time to start, and how focused should you be, and how do you diversify your services or focus your services, and how do you identify your market? And really, I'd like to know what has surprised you, because you came in with a lot of knowledge of the industry. You already said you were a little bit surprised at how diverse the use cases have been for your plugin. What other surprises did you encounter? Sorry about too many questions at once.
Yeah, it's okay, I was writing them down as well. You might have to remind me of some. But first, something that stuck out, when is a good time to start a business? There's never a good time. If you're working a job and you're kind of interested in doing something else, you just got to get the ball moving. I remember hearing from somebody one time that the hardest part about a project is starting it. So I think that's very true. As far as starting the project, you just got to get out there and put it out there and start doing the research, which kind of leads into that second part. I think a lot of people have these great ideas about getting into a business, and they may be great ideas, but they don't do the market research. I had done, like I mentioned, a few months of not only customer profiles, prospective customer profiles, but also competitive profiles, features and benefits across any potential competition, and where the gaps were in that market. And so in doing so, we could position our offering in a way that would fill those gaps. So that's an important piece, because we as much as WordPress is great and we all like to help each other out, which is fantastic, it's still business, right? You still have to make sales, and you have to stand out, and hopefully a customer will choose your product over someone else, but you have to give them a reason to. So I think an important piece is, before you get into anything, before you just go in the creation process, save yourself the time and money and do the research. I mean, we all have access to the internet. We can just jump on and start doing the research that way. Even talking to people, family, friends, is always a good idea, just to bounce some ideas off of them. But I would preface that with, just be careful, because not everybody has that same entrepreneurial mindset. So if you're going to your grandma and telling her that you want to start your own business, you're going to quit your job, she may be a little nervous about it. So take that with a grain of salt. But I know you had a few more questions in there, and they're escaping me. So if you want to remind me.
Yeah, I was basically just generally interested in lessons that you learn about, developing a product in the WordPress space, marketing it to the WordPress user base, marketing your product in general, pricing, and surprises. What has surprised you besides, the diverse use cases of LearnDash?
Yeah, what has surprised me quite a bit is, from a technical standpoint, actually the number of conflicts that exist between various plugins and themes. I know that isn't something that, I think that's an industry known thing, but I didn't know to what degree, when you see a lot of these different use cases, at least with our customers, and they all have different plugins, different themes, they all want them to work perfectly. That, to me, is somewhere where the industry really, really needs to evolve. I think, because we're not innocent of this either. LearnDash conflicts with some things as well, and it's a shame when it does. We try to fix it, but sometimes it's just really hard. So that's been a real surprise for me from a technical standpoint, doing technical support when it comes up. So I think that's one. Pricing, I kind of touched on that a little bit. Lessons learned, and obviously we're going to make our changes. But overall, I think a general surprise that I've learned on a positive note is how patient people can be. There was a time, especially when I was straddling both my full-time consulting career and doing LearnDash, where I couldn't be as responsive. I tried my hardest to be responsive and support, or we didn't have a feature, or something was broken. And maybe this is just the WordPress industry, I don't know, but I was very surprised by how patient people were, and how they kind of cut us some slack, and they still do, because I think they've seen that we try to do right by them, and we're pushing out relevant features. They know that they're being heard, but I think that's been a pleasant surprise in this whole journey.
Cool. I have a question for you, Justin, as we've been talking about your team for the project. You mentioned it's yourself and your wife doing a lot of the big picture stuff, and it sounds like you do a lot of development yourself, and probably both involved in support, I would assume. Do you have any employees, contractors, anybody working for you? And are you looking to expand or keep things lean and mean, or what does your team look like?
Yeah, so my wife and I are in the trenches every day, and then we have contractors. So when we have certain and contractors that we have really good relationships with, and that in itself is a whole process. When starting the LearnDash project initially, I must have interviewed, I want to say like 30 different potential developers, contractors for this project, and it was a process. So we have a small trusted circle of developers that we work with. Naturally, yes, we do want to grow, and we have various opportunities that we think that would be viable areas to grow into. But right now we're lean and mean. I mean, that's how we had to. Nobody's going to care about the business as much as yourself, so that's kind of how we took it on. But I would still always do support, I think, but I would like to do a little bit less of it and think more big picture items more often. Do more things like this and jumping on webinars and such. I know, it took a while for me to even get on here because just crazy scheduling and just things that are going on with the day to day. So that's kind of where we're at. It's where we're hoping to go. But we'll see what the best way is to get there. So the good news is there's a lot of good examples in the WordPress community that we can kind of look at. I know Pippin and his team. They're just obviously, we all know they're all rock stars. That's a good example and a nice model. Same with Corey Miller at iThemes. They have a great shop over there. That's just something really to admire.
Yeah, definitely. Along those lines too, what about the future of LearnDash in terms of features and things you foresee on the horizon for it?
Yeah.
Give us something we can say you heard it first on WP Roundtable.
That's
okay.
right.
Well, you heard it first. We're actually working right now on an add-on store where we're going to have paid add-ons. So right now we have integrations, and our integrations with other applications are free. I think it makes sense. It makes the flexibility of LearnDash. It makes it more flexible, more applicable to people. But stuff that we're developing in-house for new features of LearnDash that maybe not everybody needs, but there would be portions of people that would want it. That's a route we're going now. We have an add-on store that we're in the process of finishing up some of the add-ons, and then certainly this fall we're really looking to release that for anybody that wants some extra functionality.
Very cool.
So we've got, we're winding through our time. Maybe we could touch on a couple other topics here, Justin. How about, I've seen you at least one WordCamp before. I know you are helping plan Ann Arbor. How do WordCamps and the WordPress community at large, how does that fit into your business?
Yeah, well, the WordCamp in Chicago was a great experience. As you know, Kyle, there was a lot of people, a lot of great talks. That was actually the first time that we got to a WordPress event other than a WordPress meetup. Just because we were just trying to survive for a while and just trying to do the business and serve our customers, that we just felt like we didn't have the time. We were really happy and proud of the fact that we got the sponsor or be one of the sponsors of WordCamp Chicago. And then now planning Ann Arbor's WordCamp has been exciting, and as you know, and I believe you are too, going to be speaking at WordCamp in Ann Arbor, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And then I think the WordCamps, they're just a great experience in general, especially for I think they're really good for people that are looking to get into the WordPress world and kind of just dive in head first. Like they think they know about WordPress. They kind of maybe have a WordPress.com site. They want to know more, want to see what it's about. I think those are a good cross section of the people that are using WordPress and the people that are working with it on a day-to-day basis.
I think they're awesome just for getting a chance to have a beer with my man Justin and his wife Chloe and everybody else. So WordCamps are an opportunity to do that and build those relationships. So
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So what's a typical day like for Justin Ferriman of LearnDash?
Oh wow. Okay. Typical day. Well, support is always a big part of the day. So, we always log in and keep an eye on support at all times. And a quick sidebar story, we pride ourselves in being very responsive in our support, and there's a reason for that. It comes from on my consulting implementations I used to do. We'd be putting in these really complex technical software, enterprise software for an organization, and so as the training team, we had to go bug the technical people about oh, is this right? Are we training this right? Do we communicate this properly? Is this how it's going to work, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a lot of conversations via email, and nothing would drive me more crazy than when I'd send an email and nobody would respond to it, because you knew they saw it. So with that in mind, that kind of drove our philosophy on responsive support, because there's nothing more frustrating in this day and age when somebody sends you an email and 24 hours, 72 hours, goes by and you're like, you still don't hear from it. It's kind of ridiculous, and there's really no excuse for it. So back to your original question, we do support. I mean, that's being that that's a huge value offering we have. We do that quite a bit. I'm usually blogging. I blog almost daily, probably about 5 blog posts a week, in the e-learning industry, about LearnDash stuff, about technology in e-learning, about WordPress and e-learning. So that's been, to talk about surprises, that's been great to see the kind of the growth of the blog. It's been fun. As, people sometimes will just write us about blog posts that we've been doing and talk about e-learning, and I'm more than willing to do that. So that's been cool. So I'll do some blog posts, and then a lot of conversations, either following up with our current development that we have going on, or thinking about where we're going to go next with LearnDash. How are we going to create more value for our current users, and what are the industry trends? Can we build those in? Does it make sense to build those in? So, and then I think the last portion is, and you alluded to it earlier, is that we do consulting as well. There's a couple smaller businesses that have reached out that I do some LMS implementation consulting with. Not all the times with LearnDash. Maybe that's not the software they're using, but they just want someone to talk to and guide them through kind of the planning and analyzing process before they jump into their implementation. So amongst all those things, maybe a few others, that's a typical day.
Sounds like fun. So how about this? I'm a small business, and I want to set up a training course on my website for my internal team. And I ask you this, what advice do you have for me, or questions should I ask, or what struggles am I in for that I might not be anticipating? Just help a little guy out like me.
Yeah, I think the first thing I usually pose to people that come with us with those questions is, what are the objectives? What's your objective of the LMS? What do you want it to accomplish? And most people have an end goal in mind. And so sometimes they don't know how to articulate it, which is sometimes difficult. But the first and most important part about an LMS to realize is that it's always defined differently by everybody that's using one. A school is going to define it differently than a blogger, than a blogger that's blogging flowers, another blogger that's blogging business advice. I mean, everybody's got a different need out of their learning program. So the number one thing you must answer is, what's your objective of your learning program, and do you need an LMS? Maybe you don't. Save yourself, the time and money if you don't need one. But in the event that your objectives, are in line with what an LMS could bring you, then I guess I would follow that up with, what do you value in a software provider or business partner? Because that's how we like to see ourselves with these organizations. They're not just buying a product; they're buying our expertise as well. And if they value that, then LearnDash is certainly going to be the right product for them.
I think that's valuable, and like really, really makes me think about kind of what we were talking about earlier, like the WordPress community at large, and like the pricing of things and how it's evolved, and how the market is huge. The WordPress market is just like exploded, and it's so big, and there's so many options out there, and so many things those of us in it believe are underpriced. But I think the future, the direction that things are going, is towards, hopefully, quality and more partnerships and like premier providers, so that anybody knows that they could easily find a WordPress theme online, but they still come to somebody like me and say, how do I find a WordPress theme? It's not hard to find one. It's not hard to find a free or cheap one, but everybody is starting to catch on that free or cheap isn't going to cut it. You need something that's well put together, and the same goes for a more sophisticated software like an LMS, definitely, where it may not be hard to find an LMS or to install one and get started, but having a expert, having the e-learning guy, Justin, accessible and be able to work with LearnDash, not because they're the people who make this plugin, they're the e-learning people. I think that's really like kind of the future of WordPress products and software. But yeah, that's me. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think that's a good way to kind of sum it up. I think we're kind of going away, maybe in some respects, away from generalization into specialization, and I think that's a great thing. I'd always choose a specialist over a generalist. So, hopefully it does go that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
I'd like to pick your brain for a minute, turn us away from the WordPress world for a second, Justin, and just ask. Well, for some background, I travel a lot, and I'm currently in Medellin, Colombia. And when I'm talking to other people about traveling and coming to visit or whatever, the biggest concern is always education for their kids, particularly for parents. And a couple months ago, it went pretty viral that there was some school in Florida doing entirely online K through 12 education. And what do you see as that? If you were a parent, how would you feel about that as sending your child there?
Oh, that's funny you bring that up. I remember I saw that just recently. I think it was a commercial for it even. And kind of back to this whole e-learning thing is just now even just being advertised to us. But I think in that respect, in like kind of the school environment now, I don't have children yet, so this is coming from absolutely zero experience. I think there are some aspects of social aspects from school that you kind of miss out on when you're online. I mean, yeah, anybody can type and post in a forum, but your avatar isn't really you. So I think there's good things about it. I really like a blended learning approach when it comes to kind of the K through 12. Do some of it online, some of it offline. In fact, I've seen a lot of people do the actual course material delivery and the content and the studies online, and then you get in the classroom and you actually do an activity that applies that content. So we did some of that with in the corporate space, but I think that's really valuable in education, in the educational industry, because then you're getting people to think about the content differently, and instead of just preaching to somebody in the classroom, you're getting to do and apply the content. So that's, and in my perfect world, that'd be the way I would go. But I know that having these schools online does provide opportunities to some people that maybe wouldn't be able to get that schooling or that quality of education normally. So I think it's going to become more commonplace. I know we have a neighbor in where I live, and she does all her classes online. And I think she's in high school. So I think it's going to be more and more common as the years go by and mobile learning and e-learning become more acceptable.
So Justin, we're going to wrap it up, but for our audience, anybody who wants to get to know you better or meet you in person, where might they encounter you? Future meetups here in Michigan, WordCamps, other conferences, any place? Where could they, encounter Justin Ferriman, learn more about e-learning, and then where online could they hunt you down otherwise?
Okay, let me think here. Let's see. So I'll be at the WordCamp Arbor, obviously, speaking and helping to organize that. That's October 4th of this year, and then let's see, WordPress meetups in Ann Arbor as well. I believe if you go to meetup.com and search by WordPress Meetup Ann Arbor, you'll see the schedule there. It's, I think, the last Wednesday of every month, Kyle. You can hold me true to that, but I think that's when it is. beyond that, digitally, if you want to read up on all things e-learning and cool things like that, go to learndash.com/blog. That's where I'm blogging pretty consistently on the latest happenings across a variety of niche areas, I guess. And then if you want to reach out, there's my LinkedIn profile. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, kind of the forgotten stepchild sometimes, but I think LinkedIn is fantastic. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Justin. We are really, really grateful. I learned a lot, and hope you can join us again someday. Look forward to seeing you in person, and you rock.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, and well, Kyle, I know I'll probably see you at both the WordCamp and WordPress meetup in Ann Arbor, but you know, Kellen and Jason, if hopefully we'll see you there as well.
Yeah, I'll be in Ann Arbor, so we'll see you then.
Great.
But in the meantime, I wish you all the best with LearnDash and everything else you have in the hopper.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.